Hello and welcome. We know the first semi-finalist. It was Mark Selby who booked his place this lunchtime. I'm delighted to welcome a semi-finalist from 1979. It's John Virgo. John, Mark Selby, what a performance against Neil Robertson.
Well, where did it come from? I mean, in his first two rounds, we were talking about he suffers from a lack of confidence, and that seemed to be what was happening to him. Now, whether it's because he was playing people he was expected to beat, so then there's an added pressure. And when he came up against Neil, I mean, he just didn't feel any pressure whatsoever. Now, whether Neil had a lot taken out of him with the Barry Hawkins match, that was a real tough match for Neil, I don't know. But Mark Selby is just getting stronger and stronger. And on that form, I can understand why Betfred had made him favourite.
Mark really slipped onto the radar coming into this tournament as well. And if you look at the stats, I mean, he's won it 3 times in the last 6 years. So how does someone who's won it 3 times in the last 6 years slip under the radar? Is it that lack of confidence that Mark has shown recently?
Well, it could be a lack of confidence. It could also be, and we mustn't forget, there are a lot of the tournaments that are played during the season, the best of 7. And I don't think they really suit Mark Selby. But if you look at the way he's queuing now and everything, the way he's going about it, I mean, yeah, it's hard to understand why he's not been getting the results. But I think with someone like Mark, if he isn't getting the results for a short period, then he gets down on himself and he's looking for answers. But he certainly came up with them against Neil Robertson, and that was as good as seen him play since he last won it, I've got to be honest.
John, look, there's no denying his ability. Look, he's won it 3 times, but
yeah.
As a former player and a commentator now, and you obviously know so much about the game, how much of it is in there, Ben? How much of it is in there? Because Mark Selby, we know how good he is, but he's not shown it.
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, we're talking about the best players in the world here. And at the end of it all comes what's between the ears. You know, we see it with Mark, we see it with all the players, we see it with Ronnie. You know, it's between the ears and how they're feeling on the day. But if you've got great belief in your technique, and as you say, he's a 3-time winner, shouldn't be any problem, you would have thought, with his confidence and his belief in his ability. But unfortunately, it sometimes goes away from him, and he just doesn't perform. But his performance, the last match, that was the Mark Selby who's won 3 world titles. I think even the fact that he has won 3 world titles, I think it's worth mentioning. He has slightly gone under the radar as one of the all-time greats, you know, because people talk about Ronnie, Judd Trump, John Higgins. But Mark Selby in the last 5 or 6 years has been the man. Let's be fair, he was world number 1 for, what, 2, 3 seasons? Unbelievable.
Is it a bit like golf and snooker, John? You know, your putting can go at golf, can't it? Or your short game can go, and a lot of the time it's in the head, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But as I say, I think a lot of these short frame matches, best of 7s, they don't really suit the top players, and why should they? You know, because it's a bit of a lottery. Sometimes you can play and never get in. But it appears that those first 2 matches and hard grinds he had, Mark, going to 2 deciders, he's come through them and he seems to have built on that, and he's got his cue action going, he's got his rhythm going. And yeah, the way he played against Neil Robertson, it's going to take a good performance from somebody to beat him.
And obviously, as we record this, we don't know who he'll play, whether it'll be Ronnie O'Sullivan or Mark Williams. But it's a race to 17 now in the semi-final. I was looking at Mark's semi-final triumphs. Neil Robertson, 17-15. Marco Fu, I remember that. Had a couple of really long frames, didn't it? 17-15. Ding Junhui, 17-15. You know, with Mark, now we're getting to a semi-final stage, he's going to really battle, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. And as I say, particularly with these 4-session matches, you know, I mean, it's a case, what you say in your head, if you can win each session, I know it sounds simple, but they just play it as a session. If you can win the session, you can win 2 sessions, then you're going to have a nice lead going into the second day. And Mark's been through that and everything, so it just suits his style of play and the type of match player he is. I mean, he's going to take the world of beating now. There's no doubt about that. No matter who he plays, whether it be Ronnie or Mark in the semi.
You'd want him in your corner, basically, Mark Selby, wouldn't you? Because he's just a scrapper, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I think a lot of players who play like Mark, they don't get the credit they deserve because people like to see the Ronnie type of game, 16 seconds a shot, potting, break building. But there is an art to Mark Selby's game, and it's an art that should be appreciated, you know, because snooker's not all about potting and break building. It's playing the right shot at the right time, and no one does it better than Mark Selby.
And I know it ended up relatively easy against Neil Robertson, but it showed in that quarterfinal because he clearly made Neil think, didn't he? Because Neil's quite a quick player, but he was averaging about 30 seconds a shot.
Yeah, well, we discussed this, didn't we, a couple of days ago? I think that's one of the problems with Neil Robertson. If he's playing and bouncing around the table, which he can do, great potter, break builder that he is, he's fine. But if he starts getting bogged down, then he overthinks things for me and he looks for problems that aren't there. And I think that's what he did in the early part of that match. And of course, Mark Selby, like all great players, they get in front. They're not going to be looking over the shoulder behind them. They look straight ahead at the winning line. And Mark Selby, like all the great players, do that. And once he went behind, did well to come back to 5-3 that first session. But you just got the feeling then that Mark had the measure of him. And although he scrapped away, typical Aussie, he scrapped away. But in the end, Mark Selby was just too good for him.
Only 56 players have ever played in a semi-final at the Crucible. You're one of them, John. A lot of people have said to me that the tournament only really gets going when you get to a one-table setup.
Yeah, I suppose so. Listen, for me, I mean, I've played at the Crucible many, many times. I mean, from the moment you drive into Sheffield, the tournament starts, you know, the butterflies are there. But the one-table situation is something special. It is 4 sessions. And I remember when I played Dennis Taylor in 1979, I lost the first session. He used to play it different then. He'd play a 7, an 8, a 9, and then the finishing frame. And I lost the first session 5-2. And you're forever playing catch-up. And I just never was able to get back on level terms with him. So even though it is 4 sessions, you know, you've got to pace yourself and you cannot afford to lose a session. I mean, we look at people who lose sessions now and they just have great difficulty trying to catch up. There's not many people come from behind if you lose a session 6-2.
I bet Dennis never reminds you about that semi-final.
No, he's too busy talking about 85.
If my memory serves me right, John, did you have to play a 3rd and 4th playoff?
I did with Eddie Charlton, yeah. Eddie Charlton, yeah. I'll tell you a funny story. I mean, obviously, I was a bit disappointed I got beat. And I think the 3rd and 4th playoff, there was a difference of £500 for the 3rd and 4th, as it turned out. Well, I went out with some friends of mine. I've got to be honest with you, I was a bit disappointed I got beat in the semi-final. Got absolutely hammered. So anyway, I crawled into the Crucible because we had to play at 10 o'clock in the morning before the afternoon, you know, when the final started. And Eddie Charlton came up to me. He said, "I don't think this is right, Curly." He used to always call me Curly. He said, "I don't think this is right." He said, "Why don't we split the money?" And I went, "Oh, all right, I don't like doing that, but okay." You know, I couldn't even see the balls when I was breaking off. They were like going like that in front of me.
Well, it's the match that no one ever wants to play, isn't it? Let's be
Nobody
honest.
wants to play it now. 3rd and 4th playoff. Yeah. Anyway, they got rid of it after that, I think. You know.
Yeah,
I think I breathed on the referee, and he was in trouble.
A wise decision. Finishing tonight, we've got Ronnie O'Sullivan versus Mark Williams. They're battling away as we speak right now. Ronnie's up against it, but what we've seen early on is that Ronnie's not going to throw in the towel here, is he? Which he has done in the past.
No, he's not going to throw in the towel. The only thing that slightly concerns me, he's going to win it his way. And sometimes when you're behind, you've just got to shut up shop a little bit and play the correct shot and not be too adventurous. Because I don't care how good you are, you can't pot everything. So you've got to treat it with a little bit of caution, particularly against a clever player like Mark Williams, you know. But if he keeps going for the shots and he's got to get them, you're treading a very fine line there, you know. And it's a bit concerning that he lost that first session 6-2. Playing that type of snooker, he's going all out attack. Can he come back from that? As I say, it's a very fine line to tread that. I'm not
But whether
certain.
it's Ronnie O'Sullivan or Mark Williams, you've got to fancy Mark Williams at the moment. Mark Williams, Ronnie O'Sullivan versus Mark Selby is going to be a hell of a semi-final.
It would be, and as I say, I mean, I was very impressed with Mark against Neil. But you know, every day is a different day, as Steve Davis always says. You know, and it is a different day. And Mark Williams, if he beat Ronnie, could get great confidence from that. And remember, he won it 2 years ago, so I would never discount Mark Williams. And he hasn't got the best record against Ronnie, so if he was to get through this match and get to the semi-final, he'd be on a big high,
And then the other game that finishes tonight is Kurt Maflin versus Anthony McGill. McGill is 10-6 up. He lost the morning session 5-3, McGill, but he should be delighted in his own mind that he's 10-6 up.
Well, it's like I say, you know, that first session, if you lose it, you know, as Kurt did by 7 frames to 1, you're really on the back foot. I watched it this morning. I didn't think the snooker was great. Obviously, Kurt Maflin's trying to fight his way back. Anthony McGill looked very shaky at certain stages and really should be further ahead than he is. 10-6. If Kurt Maflin was to come out tonight and win the first 3 of the first 4, I could see a match on there because they both look as though they can miss anything. And I think the occasion slightly getting the better. And of course, it's that thing of playing on the one table situation at the Crucible, semi-final, still a chance to be in the final, maybe a world champion. You know, everybody wants that in the CV. And at the moment, I think the occasion is just getting the better of both players. Yeah,
because certainly with Kurt Maflin, we're not seeing a Kurt Maflin we saw beat John Higgins fair and square, didn't he?
No. And that is a hard one, you see. That's what I say. Every day is a different day. I saw Anthony McGill do his interview after he beat Jamie Clark, and he looked absolutely shattered. And you thought, well, when he comes out the next afternoon at 2 o'clock, he's going to struggle to pick himself up. And what happens? He wins 7-1. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason sometimes. And as you say, the way Kurt Maflin left the table 2 days prior after beating John Higgins, you just thought he was on a real high. But that's a game of snooker, particularly, as I say, with 2 players, 2 qualifiers who are desperate to get to that one table situation.
I think it's not just a game of snooker, John. It's for Crucible as well, isn't it? I mean, it never disappoints, does it? It's always, we always have some kind of drama at the Crucible, don't we?
Yeah, crowd or no crowd. And that's what I've always said. Even though they don't, you know, I think it holds maximum about 960 or something in the Crucible. But the television pictures have always given the atmosphere that the Crucible has, the magic that the Crucible has. And even with no crowd, you're getting that great atmosphere. And yeah, I mean, it'll get to anybody. It gets to me when I'm watching it. I'm sort of twisting and turning. You know, it's just a great, great venue for snooker. And yeah, it can catch people out. Maybe more so when there's a crowd, but even when there isn't one.
John, thank you ever so much for joining us. Great to hear from you. So, semi-finals start tomorrow, and then the finals are on Saturday and Sunday.
Betfred, proud sponsor of the World Snooker Championship.